Picture this. It's March. The long winter is finally breaking. The sun is out, there isn't a single cloud in that brilliant blue sky, and the temperature is climbing. It feels like the absolute perfect day to get out on the water, right? Wrong. In fact, that could be the single worst decision you make for your fishing success. Today, we're going to tear that perfect picture apart. We're going to show you why that beautiful sunny March afternoon is one of the toughest, most frustrating times to get a bite. By the end of this video, you'll understand the science behind this paradox. You'll finally know why the guy fishing in the cold, misty dawn outfishes everyone who shows up at noon. This isn't about luck. It's about understanding what's really happening beneath the surface. So let me ask you, and be honest, have you ever been completely skunked on what you thought was a perfect fishing day? Let me know in the comments right now. For generations, we've been drawn to the water on nice days. It's human nature. After being cooped up all winter, a warm, sunny day feels like a gift. We want to be out in it, soaking it up, and it's easy to assume the fish feel the same way. We see the sun, we feel the warmth, and our brain tells us everything must be active today. This belief gets passed down. Your dad, your grandpa, they all probably packed up the gear on the first beautiful Saturday of the year. The problem is, we are judging the fish's world by our own standards. We forget that their environment is completely different, and their behavior is driven by instincts we don't have. What feels comfortable and pleasant to us, bright sun, calm air, can be a signal for fish to shut down, hide, and become incredibly wary. We're going to break that habit of thinking today. We're going to stop thinking like people and start thinking like fish. First, let's talk about the invisible enemy of the sunny day, high barometric pressure. That beautiful, cloudless sky is a giant billboard advertising a high-pressure system. Think of the atmosphere as an ocean of air. On cloudy, nasty days, the pressure is low. On these clear bluebird days, the weight of that air is heavy, pressing down on everything, including the surface of the lake. We might feel energized, but fish experience it very differently. They have an internal organ called a swim bladder, which is basically a little balloon that helps them control their buoyancy. When the external pressure increases dramatically, it physically squeezes that swim bladder. This makes the fish feel uncomfortable, cramped, and out of sorts. Imagine someone cinching a weight belt around your waist that you can't take off. You wouldn't feel like running a marathon or eating a 5-course meal. You'd feel sluggish and just want to find a place to rest until the feeling passes. That's a fish on a high-pressure day. Their primary instinct is not to feed, but to find a stable comfort zone, usually in deeper water or tight to cover, and just wait it out. Now let's move on to what the sun is doing to the water itself. In early spring, the water is still very cold from the winter. When that intense, direct sun beats down for hours, it doesn't warm the whole lake evenly. It creates a distinct, super-thin layer of warmer water right at the surface. You might drag your hand in the water and think, oh, it's warming up nicely. But a few feet down, it's still frigid. This phenomenon is called thermal stratification. Fish, especially in the unstable conditions of early spring, are looking for consistency. They don't like rapid, drastic changes. That warm surface layer might seem inviting, but to them, it's an unstable and uncomfortable place to be. They will actively avoid it. Instead of rising up to enjoy the sun like we would, they do the opposite. They push down, seeking the more stable, consistently cold water below that thermocline. So while you're casting into the shallows thinking the sun has drawn the fish in, they have actually retreated deeper to escape the very thing you thought would attract them. It's a classic case of what feels right to us being exactly wrong for the fish. Let's dig a little deeper into that swim bladder issue. It's more than just a feeling of discomfort for the fish. It fundamentally changes their behavior and location. That pressure makes it physically harder for them to adjust their depth. They become less willing to make major vertical movements. A fish that might have chased a lure from 10 feet of water up to the surface on a low-pressure day will not even consider it when that high-pressure system is squeezing them. They become lethargic and glued to the bottom. Think about a time you've had a bad head cold or sinus pressure. The last thing you want to do is bounce around. Fish feel a full-body version of that. This is why techniques that require fish to be aggressive and mobile, like burning a spinnerbait or ripping a lipless crankbait, often fail miserably on these sunny afternoons. The fish are not in the mood to chase. They are conserving energy and waiting for the pressure to ease up. So when you're out there casting 100 times with a fast-moving bait, you're essentially offering a steak to someone who feels too sick to even think about food. It's a fundamental mismatch between your presentation and the fish's physical state. Another huge factor on a bright sunny day is water clarity. The same sun that makes the day beautiful for us acts like a giant spotlight underwater. In spring, the water is often at its clearest, as the algae and sediment from summer haven't kicked up yet. When you combine that clear water with direct overhead sunlight, the visibility underwater increases exponentially. Every little detail is exposed. This is terrible for ambush predators like bass, pike, or walleye. Their entire hunting strategy is based on surprising their prey. When the water is lit up like a football stadium, they lose that critical element of surprise. They feel exposed, vulnerable, and incredibly spooky. Your lure, your line, your shadow, everything is 10 times more obvious to them. A fishing line that might be nearly invisible on a cloudy day can look like a thick rope to a wary base in the bright sun. They will see your offering from much farther away, have more time to inspect it, and will almost always reject it because it looks unnatural. You're no longer presenting a tempting meal, you're presenting a clumsy, obvious trap. Let's talk about something anglers often pray for: a calm, glassy surface. On that perfect sunny afternoon, there's often very little wind. The water is like a mirror. While it might be pleasant for boating, it's another nail in the coffin for your fishing success. A little bit of wind, what we call the chop, is one of your best friends as an angler. First, it breaks up the water's surface, which diffuses the sunlight penetrating the water. Instead of a direct, harsh spotlight, it creates a more muted, dappled light, giving fish a better sense of security. Second, that chop breaks up the silhouette of your boat and your body, making you less obvious. On a calm day, your every movement can be detected, but most importantly, the wind creates current. Even a small amount of wind pushes water around, which positions bait fish and activates predators. It moves scent trails from your lures and stirs up the bottom. Without wind, the lake becomes stagnant and sterile. The fish become inactive. So when you see those slick, calm conditions, you should see a big warning sign. It means the fish are less likely to be feeding, and they are far more likely to detect your presence and spook long before your lure even gets to them. Now consider how this bright, calm environment affects the entire food chain, not just the predator fish you're after. Bait fish, the minnows, shad, and shiners that big fish eat, are just as, if not more, affected by these conditions. They know that in bright, clear water, they are incredibly visible to predators from above, like birds, and from below, like the bass you want to catch. Their survival instinct screams at them to find safety. So, what do? They don't scatter across the open flats. They push into the thickest, nastiest cover they can find, deep inside brush piles, under dense mats of old vegetation, or they suspend in the safety of much deeper, darker water. And as any good angler knows, you have to follow the food. If the bait fish have all gone into hiding, the predator fish will do one of two things. They will either follow them into that super thick cover where they are nearly impossible to catch, or they will simply suspend nearby, inactive, waiting for conditions to change. They know there's no easy meal to be had. So, when you're fishing the obvious spots on a sunny day and not getting bit, it's likely because the entire cafeteria has been shut down and locked up. There's a common misconception that fish, being cold-blooded, will seek out the sun to warm up. While there is a grain of truth to that in very specific situations, like after a long, stable period of extreme cold, it's not the rule for a typical sunny March day. Fish are not like lizards sunning themselves on a rock. Their primary drive is for stability, not just warmth. A fish sitting in a shallow, sun-drenched spot is experiencing wild temperature fluctuations and is completely exposed. It's a dangerous and unstable environment. Instead, they will seek out what we call a thermal refuge. This is an area where the temperature is stable and they feel secure. More often than not, this means deeper water, which is slower to react to the daytime heating from the sun. Or they will tuck themselves so far under a dock or a fallen tree that the sunlight can't reach them. They are sacrificing that little bit of surface warmth for the feeling of security and a consistent environment. So stop thinking of them as sunbathers. Think of them as security-obsessed creatures who hate surprises, and a bright, exposed flat is full of potential surprises. On a bright, sunny day, shadows become the most important form of structure in the entire lake. This cannot be overstated. With that high sun angle, any object that breaks the surface casts a distinct dark shadow line. A dock, a fallen tree, a bridge piling, a retaining wall, even a steep drop-off. These all create a sharp edge between light and dark. Fish will glue themselves to these shadow lines. They use them as an ambush point, a place where they can hide in the darkness and watch the brightly lit kill zone for an unsuspecting meal to swim by. They feel incredibly secure in the shadows. The problem for anglers is that we often fish the structure, not the shadow. For example, you might be casting to the sunny side of a dock, but the fish are all crammed onto the shady side, practically touching the pilings. You could be just a few feet away from them and never get a bite. You have to become obsessed with shadows. Pay attention to the angle of the sun and always make your first most important casts to the shady side of any piece of cover. That shadow is a fish magnet, and ignoring it is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Here is a crucial piece of the puzzle. That beautiful sunny day didn't just appear out of nowhere. In the volatile weather of spring, it is almost always the result of a passing cold front. Think about the typical weather pattern. You have a day or two of cloudy, windy, maybe even rainy weather. That's the prefrontal low-pressure system, and the fishing is often fantastic. Then, the front passes through, the wind shifts to the north, and the next day, you wake up to those crisp, clear bluebird skies. This is called a post-frontal condition, and it is notoriously the toughest bite in all of fishing. The barometric pressure skyrockets, the temperature may have dropped overnight, and the fish are in a state of shock. They have gone from an active, aggressive feeding mood to a completely negative, shut-down state. They are feeling the effects of the pressure change we talked about earlier, and their metabolisms have slowed way down. So, that perfect day you're so excited to fish is actually the hangover after the party. The fish were feasting yesterday, and today they are hunkered down recovering. You've simply arrived too late. Let's think about your tackle. On a cloudy, overcast day, you can get away with a lot. Bright, flashy colors often excel because they stand out in the low light. But under a bright, high sun in clear water, those same lures can be a major liability. A flashy chartreuse spinnerbait or a fire tiger crankbait that worked great yesterday can look ridiculously fake and alarming to a fish today. With that increased visibility, natural, subtle colors become king. Think about what real baitfish look like. They are shades of silver, white, gray, and green. They are designed to blend in. Your lure choice should mimic that. This is the time for translucent colors, baits with just a little bit of flake, and realistic patterns. You need to downsize everything too. Lighter line, smaller lures, and more subtle actions are required. That 1/4 ounce jig looks like a boulder dropping in on their head. You need to switch to a finesse approach. The fish have all day to inspect your lure, so it has to look as natural and non-threatening as possible. Throwing loud, bright, aggressive baits on a sunny day is like wearing a neon suit to a library. You're just drawing the wrong kind of attention. We've talked about how fish feel exposed, but now let's talk about you. On a calm, sunny day, you are a giant, obvious predator. Your shadow is a huge factor. As you stand on the bank or on the deck of your boat, you cast a long, dark shadow over the water. If that shadow falls over an area you intend to fish, you have likely just spooked every fish in that spot before your lure even hits the water. You have to be stealthy. Keep the sun in your face as much as possible, so your shadow is cast behind you. Move slowly and deliberately. Loud noises, like dropping pliers on the boat deck or slamming a cooler lid, travel much further through calm water and will alert fish to your presence from a long way off. Your clothing can even be a factor. Wearing a bright white or yellow shirt can make you stand out against the shoreline or sky. Think like a hunter. You are stalking a very wary animal in conditions that are highly in your favor. Every little mistake is amplified. Most anglers just stroll up to the bank and start casting, completely oblivious to the fact that they've already announced their arrival and sent the fish scattering for cover. So, if the middle of the sunny afternoon is so bad, when is the best time to fish? It's during the low-light transition periods, dawn and dusk. These are the magic hours for a reason. As the sun is rising or setting, its angle is low. It doesn't penetrate the water as directly, which immediately gives fish a greater sense of security. The shadows are long, providing ample cover and ambush opportunities. This change in light is a major feeding trigger. For a brief period, predators have a huge advantage over their prey. Think about it. The bait fish are still somewhat active, but the predators can now use the dimming light to their advantage. This is when you'll see fish move out from their deep water refuges or tight cover and begin to cruise the shallows, actively looking for a meal. The fishing can go from 0 to 100 in a matter of minutes. This is why die-hard anglers are on the water before the sun comes up and stay until they can't see their line anymore. They know that the 90-minute windows at the beginning and end of the day are often more productive than the 6 hours of bright sun in between. They are capitalizing on the prime feeding times. You might be out on a sunny afternoon and see little fish dimpling the surface and think, "Hey, something's happening." This is often a trap that fools inexperienced anglers. You need to learn to differentiate between feeding activity and something else entirely. Often, what you are seeing are not game fish. It could be small panfish, like bluegill, nipping at tiny insects on the surface film. Or it could be carp or other rough fish simply sunning themselves in that thin, warm layer at the surface, with no intention of feeding. True, aggressive feeding activity from predators looks very different. It's violent and explosive. You'll see baitfish scattering and jumping out of the water in a panic, followed by a loud pop or swoosh as a bass or pike attacks. Seeing a few gentle rings on the surface is not a sign that you should start throwing a topwater lure. In fact, it often confirms that the game fish are inactive, allowing these smaller fish to come out and play without fear of being eaten. It's crucial to correctly interpret what the water is telling you, and not just assume any sign of life means the bite is on. Let's revisit the idea of that thin layer of warm surface water. While it might seem like a small detail, it can create a condition known as thermal shock, which can be another major negative for fishing. Imagine the main lake temperature is 45 degrees, but that top 6 inches of water, under the intense sun, has warmed up to 55 degrees. That's a 10-degree difference. If you're using a lure like a jerkbait or a crankbait that dives down and then comes back up, you're pulling it through these drastic temperature changes. To a fish, this can be an unnatural and jarring signal. They are attuned to subtle, gradual changes. A bait that is rapidly changing its thermal signature can be a red flag. Furthermore, the fish themselves are avoiding that warm layer. They are sitting below it in the stable, colder water. So, if your lure is running too shallow, in that warm layer, you're fishing over their heads in a zone they have no interest in entering. This is why it's so important to know your lure's running depth and to focus on getting your presentation down below that surface layer to where the fish are actually holding. It seems counterintuitive, but those high-pressure, sunny conditions can actually slow a fish's metabolism down. As cold-blooded creatures, their body temperature and activity level are dictated by their environment. While warmer water generally increases metabolism, the overwhelming discomfort and stress from the high barometric pressure can override that. Their bodies go into a conservation mode, their heart rate slows, their digestion slows, and their need to feed diminishes significantly. They are not burning many calories because they are not moving much, so they don't need to take in many calories. This is a survival mechanism. They are essentially waiting for more favorable, stable conditions to resume their normal activities. This is the biological reason behind the lockjaw phenomenon anglers so often talk about. The fish literally are not hungry. You could drop the most perfect-looking live bait right on their nose, and they may still ignore it. Trying to force-feed a fish that is in this negative metabolic state is almost impossible. Your only hope is a reaction strike, which we'll talk about, but it's a very low percentage game. So where do all the fish actually go on these tough days? They don't just vanish from the lake, they simply relocate to more predictable, stable, and secure locations. In most cases, this means they move both deeper and tighter to cover. Instead of cruising a shallow flat, they will pull back to the first significant drop-off and suspend over deep water. A fish that was in 5 feet of water yesterday might be in 15 or 20 feet of water today. They will also use cover differently. Instead of holding on the edge of a weed bed, they will bury themselves right in the absolute thickest part of it. Instead of sitting near a log, they will get directly underneath it, rubbing their belly on the bottom. Your job as an angler is to stop fishing the summer spots and start hunting for these high-pressure hideouts. Your electronics become your best friend. Use your sonar to look for fish on steep breaks, in deep channels, or suspended off of points. You have to accept that the fish are not where you want them to be, and start looking for them where they are forced to be by the conditions. Now, it's important to mention that there is an exception to every rule in fishing. Can you have a good day of fishing on a sunny March afternoon? Yes, but the conditions leading up to it have to be just right. The most common exception is after a long, stable period of cold, cloudy weather. If you've had 5 or 6 days of cold, dreary weather, and you finally get that first calm, sunny day, it can actually trigger the fish to feed. In this specific scenario, the sun's warming effect on the water is a more powerful influence than the negative effect of the high pressure. The fish have been cold and lethargic for days, and that slight rise in water temperature can be enough to kick their metabolism into gear. They will often move to sun-drenched northern-facing banks, especially those with dark bottoms or rocks that absorb heat, and feed aggressively for a few hours. But this is the key. It's about the change and the stability leading up to it. A random sunny day in the middle of a volatile spring weather pattern is the killer. A stable warming trend, even if it comes with sun, can be the exception that proves the rule. Given everything we've discussed, it should be clear that your entire presentation needs to change. The wrong approach will guarantee failure. On these tough, high-pressure days, fast-moving, aggressive baits are almost always the wrong choice. Burning a spinnerbait, ripping a lipless crankbait, or walking a topwater plug are techniques for active feeding fish. The fish you are targeting now are negative or neutral at best. They will not chase a lure. You have to pivot to finesse tactics. This means slowing everything way down. Think about baits that you can fish incredibly slowly, or even let sit completely still. This is prime time for things like a wacky-rigged Senko, a drop-shot rig with a small plastic, or a Ned rig. These baits have a subtle, tantalizing action, even when you're not moving them. You are no longer trying to trigger a feeding response. Instead, you are trying to annoy a fish into biting. It's about putting something small, natural, and non-threatening in their face and just leaving it there until they can't stand it anymore, and they bite it just to get it out of their space. It's a completely different mindset. If you still have doubts, just think about what the professionals do. When you watch a professional bass tournament, pay close attention to what the anglers are doing during the middle of the day, especially on those post-frontal bluebird sky days. You will almost never see them out in the open, burning a crankbait across a sunny flat. What will you see? You'll see them with a spinning rod in their hand, meticulously picking apart a single piece of shady cover. You'll see them using their electronics to find fish in deep water, and then making precise vertical presentations to them. You will see them flipping or punching a heavy jig into the absolute thickest, gnarliest vegetation they can find, trying to get a lure into those dark, hidden sanctuaries where the fish are hiding. They understand that the conditions have forced the fish into very specific, hard-to-reach places. They adapt their strategy completely. They aren't trying to force the fish to do what they want. They are doing what the fish are telling them they have to do. Following their lead is a shortcut to solving the sunny day puzzle. Finally, let's talk about the mental game. A perfect sunny day can make you a lazy and complacent angler. It's comfortable to be out there. It's easy to get lost in the beauty of the day and just go through the motions. You make casts without much thought. You stick with your confidence lure, even if it's not working, and you don't pay close attention to the subtle details. On the other hand, a tougher, nastier day forces you to be a better angler. The wind and clouds make you focus. You know the conditions are in your favor, so you work harder, you pay more attention to your line, and you stay mentally engaged. The irony is that the day that feels the worst to you is often the best for the fish, and it makes you fish better. The day that feels the best to you is the worst for the fish, and it allows you to get sloppy. You have to fight that complacency. On a sunny day, you have to be more focused, more deliberate, and more willing to change than on any other day. You have to treat it like the challenge it is, not the vacation it feels like. So let's put it all together. That beautiful sunny March afternoon is a lie. It's a visual trap for anglers. It's the sign of a high-pressure system that makes fish physically uncomfortable. It's a giant spotlight that makes them feel exposed and spooky. It creates calm, clear conditions that eliminate their ambush advantage and makes you, the angler, stick out like a sore thumb. And it often comes on the heels of a cold front, which has already shut their metabolisms down. The biggest aha moment here isn't that you should never, ever fish on a sunny day. It's that you must stop fishing it like it's a perfect day. You have to completely change your mindset. The fish think it's the worst day ever, and you need to start thinking like them. Fish the shadows, not the structure. Go deeper. Slow your presentation to a crawl. Use smaller, more natural lures. This one, single shift in perspective, will save you from countless frustrating zero-catch days on the water. It will turn what used to be your worst days into some of your most rewarding, because you'll have solved a puzzle that 90% of other anglers haven't. Thank you so much for watching. If this video helped you, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next one. Now, I want to know, what's the one golden rule of fishing your grandpa taught you that you've since learned is completely wrong? Let's get a debate going in the comments below.